Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tom Rivera, and in partnership with the library here at Cal State San Bernardino, we are doing an oral history of South Colton. And just let me name the committee members that we have for our program. First of all, we have Mr. Henry Vasquez, who's here this afternoon, and Mr. Frank Acosta. And we are thoroughly interested in just recording some of the incidents that happened between 1890 and the late 1960s. And this afternoon, we have Miss Ramona Armenta. And Ramona, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
My middle name is Aranda.
Aranda. Ramona Aranda.
Genemara.
Genemara. And welcome. Thank you so much for being with us for this interview. I know I did it, I called you on short notice, and you right away volunteered to be with us.
Yes.
Well, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us. Why don't we start our interview? And first of all, why don't you tell us about your mom and dad? Where did mom and dad come from?
Well, they originated from León, Guanajuato, Mexico. They married in 1923.
Mm-hmm.
My father decided he didn't want to stay in Mexico because of the revolution. My mother had lost her father in the revolution. So my mother married very young. She was only 16.
Mm-hmm.
And so they lived in León, Guanajuato for a short time, and then they decided that they were going to come to the States because they were offering them jobs in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
My father hooked up with the Reenganche, which is a group that had come to Mexico to a pool of men or
Mhm.
families and to bring them across the border
Mhm.
with a green card
Mm-hmm.
to work. Some went to Arizona, New Mexico, and California.
Mm-hmm. And your dad came to California?
No, they first took him to Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
to some mines. I don't remember what kind of mines they were.
And then
But he
after
stayed-
Arizona?
He stayed very short time there. He had a nephew living in Oro Grande, California.
Mm-hmm.
So the nephew wrote him and told him that they were hiring at the cement plant in Oro Grande.
Mm-hmm.
So my father said, okay, we're going to California,
Mm-hmm.
because the weather was so severe where they had stopped. You know, the winters were terrific, and so were they in Oro Grande
Mhm.
because of the snow and everything. But my mother was expecting me at the time. In 1924, I was born, and
And you're the oldest of
I'm-
the Aranda family?
I am the oldest of the
And how many
family.
kids did your mom and dad have?
Total was 11 of us.
11? How many girls and how many boys?
There's 5 girls and 6 boys.
Okay. And then after Oro Grande, you moved to Colton?
No, my father applied at the Santa Fe railroad station,
Mhm.
railroad, to work, and I think he worked maybe a few months there. And then from there, he came to Colton.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And they went over that bridge that used to go up over the railroads
Mhm.
and make a sharp turn and then come down the other side in an L shape before the bridge that is there right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
I got to go over that bridge several times. And I was so scared, I didn't think that Model A was gonna make it. It was pretty steep.
And what year was that, Ramona?
1928.
1928? When you guys came to Colton?
Yes, well,
And
my sister was born in San Bernardino,
in San Bernardino?
just before we moved to Colton.
Okay. And then when you moved to Colton, where was your first house located?
It was at the Lida little warehouse
Mhm.
on the middle block of N Street. And that's where we celebrated one Christmas
Mhm.
and several other things. And that's where I first rode my first Model T,
Uh-huh.
brand new car because one of the relatives had a brand new, I think it was a Ford.
A Ford
The
Model
Ford-
T,
Ford Model
the
T.
biggest thrill in your life during
Right,
that period.
right, it
And how
was.
old were you?
I had to have been about 5.
Uh-huh.
5. Well, during the time that I was 5 years old, my father knew a professor of Spanish. He came from Mexico. Se llamaba Profesor Lira.
Mhm.
And he enrolled me into the school. So I learned Spanish before I learned English.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
So I went to this little school
Mhm.
at 5 years old.
mhm, mhm.
And so that was an education for me. And then there was a gentleman that used to come around selling menudo
Uh-huh.
in a little cart. He had a big pot. I don't know how he kept it hot, but anyway, it was the best menudo you ever had.
You mentioned that it was quite an experience when you started school. What did you mean by that?
Oh, the experience was that, you know, when you come to a new area,
Uh-huh.
you don't know anybody. So this little school signed up most of the kids that were my age. So when we went to kindergarten at 6 years old, it was the same gang.
Ah,
The same gang was going, we were all going to the same school.
uh-huh.
Which was the old Garfield that was on La Cadena at the time.
Okay, like Adena at 7th Street?
No, La Cadena and
N Street.
M actually.
Yeah,
M.
yeah.
Not N, but it was M Street.
Oh.
They used to have a little park there.
Yes, yes.
Before that little store went in.
So you were one of the students in that original Garfield Elementary School?
Yes. Mhm.
Uh-huh,
When they first built it,
uh-huh,
Mr. Heisner, which was our principal,
uh-huh,
he was German.
uh-huh.
And you know, we were fighting with Germany then,
Mhm,
but he was a real tall, 6-footer, I guess,
uh-huh.
red hair, very white skin, green
Mhm.
eyes, and he was so into the Mexican culture. He got us kids all together in the schools at different grades and made a great big fiesta in the front of the school.
Uh-huh.
I only known of one time, he even had it taped. The first movie cameras that they had,
Uh-huh.
he had one of them. And he filmed it. And I don't know whatever happened to to our superintendent of that particular school, which was a Garfield.
So you went to Garfield, and then you went to Roosevelt?
1 year in Roosevelt while they were building our junior high.
Wilson. Wilson Junior High School.
Right.
And then when did you start Wilson Junior High School?
1938.
1938?
Graduated in 39.
And you graduated from Wilson 1939?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And then you went to Colton High School?
Yeah, in the 40s,
Uh-huh.
which I started in 1940 and graduated in 43.
So you
Yeah,
graduated from
39.
Colton High School then? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Ramona, during that period, you said that you were actively involved in softball.
Yes,
What team did you play for?
the Colton Mercury, Girls Mercury.
The girls' Mercury team? And what
We
was
had the
your-
boys Mercury.
And what was your position?
A catcher.
You were the catcher? Do you remember some of your players, some of the?
Very few that I remember now.
A ver.
But I remember them, what they looked like and how they played, but I
Uh-huh.
cannot remember their names.
And what year was that?
40 and 41.
40 and 41? And the catcher, and then the pitcher,
Lucy Garcia was the pitcher.
and the first base person,
Uh, Carmen, I think.
second base,
Connie.
shortstop,
I don't remember shortstop.
third base,
And some of them I don't
and the
remember.
fielders.
Fielders. I used to fill in for fielder, the right fielder,
Uh-huh.
when I had to take a rest from being
Uh-huh.
a catcher. But other than that, I don't remember that many,
Mhm.
of them. Oh, I think there was a Ruby Garcia too.
You mentioned Arredondo.
Arredondo was more in the professional. She was more of a professional because she was older than we were.
Uh-huh.
Because our limit
Uh-huh.
for the for the age limit was established.
Yeah.
We could only be so old.
And then besides softball, what other recreation did you have? You mentioned that you were involved in Las Fiestas Patrias,
Right.
the 16th of September.
Right.
What was your role? You said your dad coached you in actively participating in Las Fiestas Patrias in September.
Yes, I was part of their program, and I was taught the dedication to the flag, the colors and what they represented, and we were taught to sing the national anthem in Spanish.
And how old were you when you did that?
Let's see, I started possibly 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I did that for a while, maybe 3 years.
2 years?
Three.
3
About
years?
3 years.
And what years were those, Ramona? Do you remember?
Well, if I started at 10, it had to be, how old was I at 10? I mean, what year was I at 10? 34,
Uh-huh.
35, 36, somewhere around there.
So you were one of the main people that put the Fiestas Patrias together.
That's what they featured me. So I had fun.
And then your dad, what role did your dad play in the Fiestas Patrias?
Not much. He was a member of the Logia.
La Logia Progresistas?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a member of the Logia.
Uh-huh.
The one that was really in charge of that was Mr. Sosa.
Luz Sosa.
Luz Sosa.
Luz Sosa.
He was
Okay.
the instigator to all of that,
Uh-huh.
the one that made the plans
Uh-huh.
and the program. And until he passed away, he was very active. So
Mr. Luis Sosa was Mr. 16 de Septiembre Fiestas.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then what other activities did you do? You mentioned that you went swimming in the Caldera swimming pool. Tell me about that.
Well, I think I was also about 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
On Saturdays, when we didn't go to school Saturdays, my father was one of the first owners of an automobile. So we'd pile all the kids from the neighborhood into the car. Saturdays, we're going to the plunge. We used to call it the plunge.
Mhm.
And he used to drive us, because we were in La Paloma, drive us all the way to 5th Street, where the pool was. So we used to have a lot of fun there in the summertime.
Uh-huh. Do you know anything about the background of Mr. Caldera, Juan Caldera?
I believe he had a bakery.
Okay.
He had a bakery on 7th Street, next to the Martinez store.
Mm-hmm.
That's there on, what is that, M Street?
Yes, yes.
And he used to own that property that was next,
Mhm.
south of Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
And he developed that into a bakery. He and his father, I think, because I think I got to meet his
Mhm.
father too. But it was a big Caldera family.
Mhm.
And the kids were very good swimmers.
Mm-hmm.
There was Cristobal Caldera was the owner of all that property over there where the pool was.
Mm.
So
That was on Congress and 5th Street?
something
In that area?
yeah,
Okay.
right. Now Caldera also sponsored or owned, I don't know which one, but he sponsored a team, a men's baseball team, one of the first ones that before the Mercuries.
Ah, okay.
Before the Mercuries, way back when they had the dirt field, nothing on there, just but dirt.
Where was the baseball field? Also
Right
where the plunge?
behind the plunge.
Oh, okay.
It was an
Okay.
open field. And what he used to do is I think he used to grow corn in the field.
Mhm.
When they drained the pool every, I think it was either Friday night or something to that effect. They used to drain the pool and use that water to irrigate.
Oh, I see.
So they would recycle the water, and then they would fill clean water for Saturday. So
Okay.
Saturday was crispy clean. It was beautiful. And,
No.
but the water was cold.
I can imagine. So he had a baseball field in that area also.
Yeah, and
I also heard that he had a bull ring.
yes, For a little while, they tried it, but I think the state of California came after him because it was animal abuse.
Okay, okay,
They wouldn't put up with it.
yeah.
So that faded away very
Very
fast.
quickly, huh?
Mhm.
What about the dance hall? I heard that he also had a dance hall in that area or some type of hall.
I don't really, oh, maybe upstairs in his building where he had the bakery.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a dance hall up there on top.
Mhm.
I don't remember because I wasn't of age to be in a dance hall at that time. At 10 years old, I wasn't
Mhm.
into that.
Mhm.
But I believe I heard something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Then, of course, around that same time, there was another little dance hall down on Fairway that connects from,
Valley?
no, is it Valley? Yeah, around Valley.
Uh-huh.
And where the wash is right now, where there's nothing but dirt, and
Mhm.
they have a storage there right now.
Mhm.
They were even planning to make a soccer field there. Colton was planning to. It hasn't developed or anything.
Mhm.
There used to be a dance hall there. I think it was called, what was it called? I can't remember the name of
Yeah.
the little dance hall. The reason I know it is because a lady that used to go dancing there had a little boy, had a baby, and the little baby was left with my mother and me to babysit him while she went to the dance. That's how I remember it. So I was a babysitter for this lady that used to go dancing in
Uh-huh.
that little place.
Uh-huh.
So that
What
was-
about, I heard of another dance hall on the corner of O Street and 7th Street. El Tivoli or Tivoli?
And that's where I started learning about the fiestas
What
patrias.
was the name of it?
Tribuli.
Tivoli, El Tivoli?
Tribuli.
Okay.
I think it caught fire or got destroyed somehow.
Uh-huh.
And just the pillars were left, the front
Uh-huh.
pillars, and they used to use that for a background.
Uh-huh.
So any fiestas or any presentation that was done in front of those pillars.
Mhm.
But I don't remember, oh yes, I remember. That's where they had that little school.
The
That's
little
where-
school where you first
where I
started
first
when you were
started
5 years
learning.
old.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Where I first went to school
Uh-huh.
at 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
So I think, and then from there, they moved that little school to where El Sombrero is now.
Yes.
There was a little, kind of a theater where they presented different plays and stuff.
Mhm.
I wasn't too much into that, so, because I was too young at the
Mhm.
time, so I didn't really pay attention to
Uh-huh.
what was going on at that age, at my age.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. There was a lot of activities going on.
And you mentioned your dad.
Mhm.
Where did your dad work when he moved to Colton?
At the time, there was no work. Well, he only worked for a little while at the.
Was this during the Depression?
Yes,
Okay.
very much. Most of my youth was during the Depression. And we didn't get out of the Depression until World War II, which is 1941. So, and then my father got a job at the Pacific Fruit Express,
Mhm.
and there's where they came up, because by then the boys had gone into the service, the older boys had gone
Mhm.
into the service, and they were able to send money for the rest of us to live on.
Okay. So your brothers joined the service?
Well, they were drafted. not
They were
really
drafted?
joined. They didn't
They were
join.
kicking and screaming.
They went. They went.
So they were in the service, and was this World War II?
Yes, World War II.
And name the brothers that participated in World War II.
That was my brother.
Tony?
Tony, Louis, and John.
And John. They were all veterans of World War II.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ramona, when they came home, were they different because of their experiences in traveling or being to different places and then fighting? Because I know that it was hard for Mexican Americans to be part of the community, the north part of the community.
Mhm.
Was there any changes where when your brothers came home and said, wait a minute, I paid my dues, therefore, I'm a fully American citizen, and therefore, I should be treated as such?
Well, being that they were born American citizens, that wasn't a problem. But the jobs were not available. But I take that back a little. Some of the people that had jobs before they went in, like my husband, when he went in, he had a job. He had a job with the Riverside Cement Plant, and they kept his job. When he came back to his job, which was good. But now my brothers, when they went in, they were still single, and they had not established a job. So they came back to whatever they could do. My brother Louis, he was a little shoe shine boy.
He was a what?
Shoe shine boy.
Okay.
You know that they made
Yes.
their little boxes.
Yes.
Of course, the police were always chasing them away.
Where would he shine shoes?
Wherever somebody would stop by and let them shine shoes on their little box.
Was this on
Because
7th Street or?
Wherever.
Okay.
They would just walk down and then somebody called them over to do my shoe shining, because in those days, that was a style, shine shoes. That was it.
And tell me about the Depression years. How did that affect the families?
I think we were very close to each other. If somebody had something, they'd share. We were a very sharing generation. So if somebody was making soup and they didn't have the vegetables for it, and the other family did have the vegetables, they'd contribute. My father, at one time, he used to collect all the oranges from the packing house.
Yes.
He had his little truck. He would collect all these oranges, and they would sort them out. Just because they had a little speck or something, they would be rejected. They would be thrown out for juice or whatever it was. I think just thrown out, because he used to get full little truckloads of oranges, take them home, and we would all sort them out. There was nothing wrong with them on the inside. Just the little skin had a little mark or something. No, they were rejected. Well, anyway, it turned out that he would sell some of those oranges or exchange it, barter. And he would do it with other farmers that had little gardens and stuff. So that's how we survived. But other than that, life was hard.
And what about, I guess you didn't have any spending money during that period.
If we got a penny, that was big money. I don't think anybody owed more than $1. And then what was very interesting too is that when I was about 10 years old, there was a teacher, Miss Williams, and the Bank of America started a little savings for the school kids. Now the school kids, we would every Tuesday they would bring a little bag from the bank and a little bank book.
Okay.
And if you would put in your penny in there, they would mark it down. We collected maybe something like 27 cents or 50 cents.
But the idea was to save money.
To encourage us to save money. Of course, there were not any jobs to say you can earn so much and save so much and use the rest for whatever. When my father had a little extra money from wherever, I never did find out where that little bit of money came from. But my mother was very economical, so she made it go. She made it go with that little money that.
With 10 or 11 kids.
Yeah, but then he would buy us milk and pan dulce and all this stuff, and we survived. How God took care of us, I do not know.
Con tortillas and
tortillas and yeah.
frijoles and
And my mother used to buy the big old bags of the, was it amapola? No. What was
La
it?
piña.
La piña.
la piña.
And we actually have a set of la piña
Uh-huh.
plates that we used to get with the flour.
Now, the piña flour came in big sacks.
Yes.
Did your mom use them to make clothing or?
Uh,
I know my parents used to use a
Yeah,
big
they
sack.
used to make our little panties out of
Uh-huh.
those. Yeah. I
Uh-huh.
remember those. No elastic.
No,
No
no.
elastic, it had a little string.
Uh-huh.
And you tie the little panties
Yeah.
the string. Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
My mother was very, like I said, she was very economical and
Yeah.
she used to, since I was the oldest and there was two other girls,
Mhm.
she would make us 3 dresses, all alike but different sizes. I
Uh-huh.
was the oldest, was the bigger size,
Yeah.
medium size, and little size.
What about zapatos, shoes, Ramona?
You know, I only remember one time when I needed new shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how we did it, but my father got us shoes. I don't know how.
But they were difficult to, because they were expensive.
No, they weren't expensive. It was the fact that we didn't have the money.
Uh-huh.
But you could get a pair of decent shoes for $1.50
Mm.
at that time.
Yes.
$1.50, well, $1.50 was, you know, practically.
Now, during those years, did you work?
No, because I was still in school.
Okay.
All
How
the-
about summers, during the summers?
Oh, we used to go to the apricots
Tell me about, where did you go to the apricots?
In
During the
Hammond.
summer?
in Hammond.
Uh-huh.
During apricot season, the boys would pick the apricots, bring them to the, not warehouses, sheds.
Shed?
The
Uh-huh.
shed where you would work them, you would
Uh-huh.
slice them, take the pit out, lay them on some boards. They would put them in the sulfur ovens and then out in the sun.
So your summer
That's that's
trip
what we
was
did.
to Hemet.
Uh-huh.
Hemet to pick and also prepare the apricots.
You had to be.
Yeah, for how many years did you do it, Ramona?
I must have done that for 12, this year must have been about 12 to 16,
Mhm.
17,
So about 5 years?
5 years.
5 years.
Every summer.
Just apricots, did you go to other places?
No, we didn't do other fruits.
Okay.
We tried the boysenberry, but
Uh-huh.
that was so hard
Oh, in Bloomington? Uh-huh.
on your hands.
Uh-huh.
We did.
And that was not fun?
No, there was no
That
fun.
was not fun.
No. But over there, you had to go and camp in Hammond.
Uh-huh.
So you would take your tent, pitch it, take your homemade tables with a platform in the bottom
Mhm.
to put the pots and pans so the ants wouldn't come and get them and whatever.
So
It was camping.
it was camping during that time.
Yeah, it was camping.
And then you met a lot of people that came from different
Yes.
cities that
Mhm.
also went to Hemet
Yes.
to work on the
We
apricots.
would meet every year, we would meet the same
Uh-huh,
people that
uh-huh.
were hired in that particular ranch to do that kind of work.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. So that was interesting too.
Did that create any long-lasting relationships with people? Did the boys and girls get together and get married or?
I don't know if they actually got married meeting there, but we used to have my cousins from San Bernardino, and some of them used to play instruments, and they take their instruments and they play the guitars, and we all sang together in the evenings.
Uh-huh.
After you took a shower and
Uh-huh.
had some dinner,
Uh-huh.
then we would be out there participating in the entertainment.
Do you remember any of the songs?
No, not right off, I don't remember. But anyway, whatever it was, it was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah,
It was fun.
it was fun.
Yeah. You mentioned that your sisters, Rose.
Mhm.
Rose. Tell me about Rose. How did she meet Chuck?
The way I understand that she met Chuck, he was from San Bernardino
Yes.
and she was from Colton. And when there was, somebody hired a bus and they were going to go to the mountains. They were planning a mountain trip to the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Chuck and some of his buddies were in that bus,
Mm-hmm.
and Rose and some of her girlfriends were in the bus. So they all met in there, and they started introducing themselves and whatever. And I guess Chuck got chummy with Rose, and that's how it started.
That's on a bus trip to the snow, huh?
Yep.
Well, Chuck got was a recipient of the Medal of Honor for his service
Mhm.
that he provided during the Korean War.
Yes.
And he's one of three in the area that were recipients of the Medal of Honor. We have one from Colton,
Mhm.
Rudy Hernandez, and one from Riverside, Ismael
Mhm.
Villegas. But tell me about Chuck. After receiving the Medal of Honor, did he stay in the service until he retired?
Yes. Mhm. But he never came back to live in Colton
Uh-huh.
because my sister Rose was so afraid of earthquakes. They went to Texas.
Mm.
She's dreadfully afraid of earthquakes.
Uh-huh.
So she said, no, I'm not going back to Colton.
Yeah.
Let's find some other place. So
Uh-huh.
they went to Texas, and that's
And,
where he passed away.
When did he pass away?
Must be about almost 10 years now.
Uh-huh. And they have a school that was named for him
Mhm.
here in San Bernardino.
Mhm.
The Chuck Rodriguez.
It's an academy.
It's an academy, Chuck Rodriguez Academy.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just down the street here from Cal State.
Well, it's down the street from where I live.
Yes, yes. Anyway, but I was gonna ask you something about, you mentioned, how was that school built? Or did they get donations from the community?
I don't know, I think they needed a school in that area.
No, but before you mentioned that, there were some donations that were given.
Oh, no, that's when they were gonna build his home.
Oh,
When
tell me
when he
about
came
that.
back, when he came back from the service, San Bernardino got all together, and they decided they were gonna give Chuck a home.
Mhm.
So, up in the area, what did I tell you it was? Anyway, up going towards the mountains,
Mhm.
at 38th Street, and, I don't remember the cross street. Anyway, all of San Bernardino got behind him. With the little piggy banks, all the little kids at school donated to this big fund to build his home. They built his home. While building his home, Rose and Chuck were picked to be in the program of, what was his name? I can't remember that one name. Anyway, a contest. What was this guy with a cigar?
Mhm.
What was his name?
Groucho.
Groucho Marx.
Yeah, his program. And so they went, the other person, a famous person that was there, because from Hollywood, was Robert Mitchum. He was there. And Rose got introduced to him. And they participated in the contest. And so they won O'Keefe and Merritt gas range
Mm.
that went into that house.
Oh, so they got a gas range as a prize for being on the.
On the
in
program and winning the program,
And
winning the
program.
prize,
Oh, wonderful.
because there were several contestants, I think there must have been about 4 sets of
Mhm,
contestants.
mhm,
So anyway, that's all, we also have that in film,
mhm.
the whole program.
Mhm,
One of my brother-in-law has the film,
mhm.
because we just read it not too long ago.
Oh, they have a film of,
Of Groucho Marx and the winning,
okay.
the whole thing.
You also mentioned that they made a film of Chuck.
Yes, some movie stars that were professionals
Uh,
one of them took the part of Rose, and somebody else took the part of Chuck. But it depicted that they had a summer party in the movie. It wasn't a summer party, it was a snow party up in the mountain.
Oh, okay.
That's the only thing that was changed.
And
Other than that-
what's the title of the film? ¿Te acuerdas? Do you remember?
No, I don't know the exact title.
Is it
but,
available?
I don't know who would have it.
Yeah.
Maybe Chuck Henry.
Okay.
Maybe Henry knows who has
Mhm.
the original film that they filmed in Hollywood,
Mhm,
telling the story.
Yeah.
And there was a big production at the California Theater, because I
Oh.
got to go.
Well, what year was that, Rose?
That must have been, let's see, right after he came back from winning the congressional Medal of Honor.
In the mid-50s then?
Yeah,
Okay.
or early fifties.
Early 50s?
Early fifties.
Now, tell me about you. How did you meet your husband? What was his name?
My kids, my children's father was Trini Mercado.
Okay.
So when we met at the baseball park, at Veterans Park.
Oh, you're kidding. In
Veteran-
South Colton.
Yeah, in
Okay.
Veterans Park.
Were
in
you
South
playing or you just happened to be there?
He was playing for the boys' Mercury team and I was playing for the girls.
Uh-huh.
And that's how we met in 1940. We carried on this little attraction for each other until we were married in 1943 after I graduated. Because we met in 1940.
Uh-huh.
So, and I was living right in the neighborhood of where the big flood was. We were living almost neighbors to Margarita Gomez, across the street.
Yes, yes.
And then across the street from Ernie Garcia.
Yeah. No, Margarita Gomez lived on
The
M,
corner.
the corner of M and 10th Street, the northwest corner, yeah, or the southwest corner.
Southwest.
Corner, yeah. And then you were also a few blocks away from Dr. Ernie Garcia?
Yeah, he lived on 10th Street,
Uh-huh.
right kind of opposite to where Margarita's house was.
Yeah, and
Right.
then that barrio was named
The barrio was La Paloma.
La Paloma, La Paloma.
Oh, yeah.
So you're a palomera also.
Oh, yeah. That's right. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's been quite an experience.
So you married, were courted for 3 years?
Uh-huh.
And,
Well, the person that married us was, the priest that married us was Father Valencia. Father Valencia is the one that married us.
Uh-huh.
And Father Luque was the altar boy
I'll be darned. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
when we were married.
Uh-huh.
Well, this was way back in 43.
In 1943?
And of course, a lot of the girls my age were getting married at the time,
Uh-huh.
including his mother.
Whose mother is that? Henry's mother?
Yeah, they were married about the same time.
Uh-huh.
So, and of course, I knew Lupe, which was his aunt. Is that your aunt? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, she was in my class, and she was a little terror though, because she was so into everything. They used to have a little clique, and those girls would get into more trouble. And one time there was a Miss Snyder, and we used to fear her. That she was a toughie.
Mhm.
And one time I remember very vividly, this little clique decided they were going to go into the classroom chewing gum. So they were all chewing away. So Miss Snyder called them all up. I said, "You're not going to throw your gum away. You're going to put it on your nose, and you're not going to take it off." So she had them put the gum on their nose, and they stayed that way until she told them, "You can get rid of it now." They never did it again. So anyway, it's all part of growing up.
Yeah.
Part of
And how many children did you have?
I have 4 girls and 1 boy.
Mhm.
Then after my husband passed away in 1974, I didn't marry until 1990 when I married my second husband, who is just now deceased.
I just passed away. When you graduated in 43 from Colton High School, did you get a job where you did a...
No, I
you went to
married
work?
right after getting because that was kind of the custom because there was no jobs available. But during the time that I was married, I worked for Helmut's department store as a clerk.
Now, Hellman Department Store was located where?
The corner of G and J Street, was it
Uh-huh.
J?
Mhm.
And La Cadena.
Yeah, where the freeway is now.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, where the
Yeah.
freeway is.
And how long did you work in the department store?
I think I worked 2 years.
2 years?
2 years.
Yeah.
Then my husband came back from the service, I didn't have to work anymore.
Okay.
So then I dedicated my life to being a homebody.
Oh, very good, very good.
Mhm.
That's good. Ramona, what was the role of women back then, you know, in the 30s and 40s?
You know that during some of that era, well, when I was still single, Roosevelt had a NYA, that was a National Youth Administration, NYA training. So I trained in a sewing factory.
Mm-hmm.
We used to make, and that sewing factory was on D Street in San Bernardino. It was a great big warehouse. And during that time, some of us girls that didn't have a job and weren't married or anything like that, we were taught to run the machines, you know, the sewing machine and stuff. We built when Norton first built, when Norton was new.
That's Norton Air Force Base?
Norton Air Force Base was brand new, and they were just staffing it, and they had workers there. We were sewing the uniforms that were issued to the workers that were working in the different departments in the base. And I was kind of wondering why they were building these, why we were making these uniforms. And they were made out of blue denim, can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Blue denim is hard to work with, very hard to work with. So that was another experience that I went through. And then after I was married in 1954, I worked for Norton Air Force Base
Okay.
from 53, about 2 years. And then I quit that because I had my third child.
Mm-hmm.
So then I gave that up and stayed at home a while. Then I got a job at Motor Day in a sewing factory.
Mm-hmm.
I worked there for 15 years.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time.
That was a long time.
That was a long time.
Till it closed.
Uh-huh.
Till it closed. They closed it up because China was taking over all these garment industries.
Mm-hmm. What did you do at Norton? What was your job at Norton?
I was a instrument repair.
Mm-hmm.
We used to work with the gauges that went on the planes,
Mm-hmm.
be sure that they were working properly.
Mhm.
If they weren't working, you would reject them. But we used to work at I worked for a period in instruments,
Mm-hmm.
electrical instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to work the long cables. That was the central part of the airplane.
Mhm.
That's what drove everything,
Mm-hmm.
air conditioning and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just, after that, then I worked in the pumps and valves. They shifted us around because they were starting to lay off people
Mhm.
right around that time. So then they changed me to pumps and valves, and what we did, we worked in the fuel pumps, securing them and sealing and making the seals
Mm-hmm.
and putting them all together, and then shipping them out again. I don't know where they shipped them, but they shipped them out. And then I quit that because I was having my little girl. And then I stayed home another while. Then I hired in on Motor Day. And that's where I worked with.
Now, where is Motor Day? Where was it located?
It was on K Street, K and Rialto and K Street.
That
It was a big,
Colter?
no, in San Bernardino.
San Bernardino?
It was a big enclosed building. It didn't have any windows.
Oh, okay.
It's still there.
Mhm.
It's a uniform
Mhm.
place right now. I think they make uniforms there.
Mhm.
So, anyway, it's been quite a merry-go-round.
Well, you've been
I-
very, very,
I've been very busy, yes.
let me see, when you were in high school, when you were in high school, did you participate in any of the activities there, sports or clubs or just things that were there at the high school?
Mhm. I participated in the play, I mean, in a program. It was kind of like a summer program, and it was dancing and music and performance. And they had a part for me that was a Spanish dancer,
Mhm.
and it was held in the basketball court.
Oh, the Macintosh gym?
The
Okay.
Macintosh gym.
Yeah.
So, it was beautiful. But this was all from the music department.
Uh-huh.
The music department took over.
Mhm.
Then I participated in 3 plays.
You're kidding. What were the plays that you
The
remember?
Mikado, Pirates of the Sixpence, and what was the other one? Did I participate in 2 or 3? Mikado, that was the Japanese. Well, I only remember 2 right now.
Mhm, mhm.
Anyway, it was very interesting.
Mhm.
I was kept busy. Well, one thing that I was very proud of, Miss Pesquera, who was a Spanish teacher, I was her top student.
You were what?
Her top student.
Oh.
I was a double A student,
Uh-huh.
not just an A student, I was a double A student. And she would have me help all the other kids with their Spanish.
So you were a tutor?
Kind of a
Yeah,
tutor.
tutor.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, I guess she used to like me because she used to give me little
Mhm.
time off
Uh-huh.
to go and do some practicing and the dancing and stuff like that. I would get off a few minutes early or stuff like that. You can go, you can go. So I guess
So
I
you
got
were
a
the
little.
teacher's pet?
Yeah, I was a teacher's pet, and she would let me go tutor some of the other kids.
And did you ever did you ever think of going to Valley College or continuing your education?
And at the time, I couldn't because my father didn't have the money for it. And everything it was just a rough time.
Uh-huh.
So the only time that I ever decided to do anything like that, well, I was already committed with a family, so I couldn't do that. But with my brothers and sisters, I encouraged them to go.
Mhm.
I said, I wasn't able to do it, you do it.
Mhm.
So,
So older sister said, you better do it, eh?
yeah, well, we just presented the case. I
Yeah.
said, you don't want to be like me. I just
Yeah.
went up to such and such. And
Because Joe did very well.
yes, he was a very, well, he was
One of your younger brothers.
he was
yeah.
very bright. He's one of my middle brother,
Uh-huh.
middle of
Uh-huh.
the kids. And then my Velma, she was quite a little. She was. I can tell you. I remember when one time I was visiting their home, and Velma's little nose would just hit the edge of the table. Her little nose was just up over the table. She was bilingual, Spanish and English fluently at 5 years old,
Mhm.
6 years old, because her mother is Panamanian and she spoke beautiful
Uh-huh.
Spanish. And then she picked up the English in school.
Uh-huh.
But do you know that when she went to get a job, she couldn't speak Spanish?
Hmm.
She didn't want to speak Spanish.
Hmm.
So she was having her mother tutor her to learn Spanish
Relearn
all over
Spanish
again.
again.
Yes. Yes.
No, I remember
Isn't that something?
Velma Henry was one of our future leaders back then in '85.
Yeah.
But anyway, you also mentioned the flood,
Yes.
the 1938
Mhm.
flood. Tell us about the flood.
Well, the flood, we had never encountered such rain. It was just terrible.
It was February or March when we had the flood.
Right around there, I don't
Yes.
remember that. I could look up the date.
1938, huh?
And we lived
How old were you?
I was, let's see, how old would I have been in 1938? 14?
15 or so? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, and that's when we were living close to Ernie's family's house. And Margarita Gomez was living across the street from us. We were on the second house from the end, and she was the first house in the corner.
Okay.
So we were just living in the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all surprised because we had never had that much water. And then we had an open canal in front of the house. It didn't have a cover. It was just open. It's water coming down maybe from the ice place. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it was coming from the east side of Colton. And I just remember that it rained and it rained and it rained, and then the police came over and told us, if it doesn't quit raining in the next hour or so, everybody has to evacuate. You have to find relatives or whatever and go to a higher ground. That's all. Well, it just so happened that it quit.
Mm-hmm.
But
How far did the waters get to the neighborhood?
up to
10th Street,
10th,
up to 10th Street?
up to 10th
That was a
Street.
lot of water.
10th Street, and then of course it took the railroads, all the not the Santa Fe,
PFE?
the PFE.
The PFB.
All those railroad tracks were mangled up. Oh, yeah. People actually died in that. They died because they didn't realize that rushing of water through the Santa Ana River
Mm-hmm.
was so bad. Oh, the one other time that I ran into a very high water flow there in the Santa Ana River, they had already built that little bridge
Mhm.
over into Mount Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
Was in, let's see, what year was it? Well, I don't know whether you remember or not, but we had so much water that it filled up the underpass
Yes.
there. Okay, what year was it?
Oh, I don't remember much.
But anyway,
but I
it
do
was
remember.
recent.
Yes, yes.
It was recent, it wasn't way back when.
Well, in 1938, the flood got all the way, and did damage to the PFB Pacific Fruit Express.
Yes,
And its shore was on 10th Street. Did it affect the park,
which park?
the Veterans Park, the Veterans Park?
Let's see, the Veterans Park wasn't there at the time.
So it was just a field,
It was just a few.
and did it affect the field that where the Veterans Park?
Well, yeah,
is?
it filled it up with water, but then
Really?
when it drained,
Uh-huh.
it drained into the
Uh-huh.
Santa Ana River.
So
It was
also-
part of the Santa Ana River at the time.
I'll be darned. And then it was also covered Congress Street?
Yeah, I mean the water, but
Yes.
there was nothing there yet.
Uh-huh.
Remember those projects that were built there next to the
Yes.
park?
Yes.
Those weren't there
Uh-huh.
until way back after 1938.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But very, very few things were towards the river.
Mm-hmm.
There was all river land. So those projects were built during the World War.
50s, yeah. Late
Just-
in the 40s, yeah.
In the 40s.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it was after the flood. So some of that stuff was not there.
But the 38 flood really did a lot of damage to South Colton.
Yes, over there from 10th Street on down,
Mm-hmm.
it really tore it up.
10th, 11th, and 12th Street, and then you have the river.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother, Tony, had taken some pictures with a little Kodak camera.
Mhm.
In those days, you could buy a little tiny camera.
Yes.
Click with it.
Uh-huh.
And I let one of Cataldo's picture collector,
Mm-hmm.
I gave her, or obviously I gave it to her, some pictures from the floods, and I'm hoping that someday she'll feature them in one of her collections of the 38 flood.
Yeah, I've heard about the, but I've never.
Yeah, have you ever attended the Heritage
No, but I will.
in San
But I
Bernardino.
will.
And
Let
he
me
has
ask
a
you
big
another
collection.
thing. Let me ask you another question. You said your dad was involved with the Progresistas.
Yeah.
Who were some of the leaders in Colton that you remember?
I know that Joe Saldana was one.
Joe Saldana, okay.
And.
Large family. Large
Lucky.
family. Pete Lukey, senior.
Senior. And that's about all that I remember.
Okay.
Because I wasn't very involved into the
Mhm.
politics of
Mhm.
Colton.
Uh-huh.
So, other than that, politics didn't mean that much to me at
What
the
about,
time.
yeah, you mentioned that you did some recreation or entertain yourself by going to the movies, the theater. You mentioned there was seating for Mexicans and seating for Anglos. Tell me about that.
Well, we knew our place, let's put it that way. We never contested that. We knew that if we went, we'd just sit where they told us to sit.
Mhm.
We didn't fight it or anything,
Was this both at both theaters?
both.
Both. And you also mentioned the swimming pool,
Yeah,
that you were lucky that you had Caldera swimming pool because we were not allowed to go into the other pool in the north side.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yes. That happened a lot, but we were content with our pool
Mhm.
because they kept us so nice and neat. Caldera
Mhm.
used to hire the boys
Mhm.
about the age of, maybe 17, 18,
Mhm.
to clean it, you know how it
Mhm.
makes the moss around it. It
Mhm.
was a big pool.
Mhm.
It was a big pool, and they would clean it on Fridays
Mhm.
and fill it up overnight Saturday.
Mhm.
It was all nice and crispy
Mhm.
Saturday.
Ready
And so
for-
that's when we.
ready for you, huh?
That's when we wanted to go
Uh-huh,
in, yeah.
uh-huh.
We wanted to get into that clean water,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Because they do put the chlorine to keep it nice and
Yeah,
crisp.
yeah.
But he used to keep it real clean and nice.
Uh-huh.
And we were, when we were living on L Street, because we lived on some of those houses, my father always rented. And we lived across from the Caldera family,
Uh-huh.
so one of the branches of the Calderas. And they all knew how to swim. They were very good swimmers. I was in school with Trini Caldera. He was my age. And he's the one that used to own Trini's bar.
Yes,
San
San Bernardino, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And he served time in Mexico for, I don't remember for what.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, let me ask you also, in looking back, what's different now? How has life changed in Colton?
Other than that, so much insecurity, like we're afraid to be out at night. In those days, you used to go up and down the streets in little groups, families, just walk up and down in the evenings, in the summertime. Now you can't, you don't feel free to do that
Mhm.
because you don't know what's up there. It's just insecurity to
Mhm.
me. And I said, I don't even go out at nights.
Mhm.
I don't drive at night anymore either. I used to be a driver. I used to go down to Mexico and take people down there shopping, and
Mhm.
I don't do that because of the bad elements out there. But if it were possible, I would enjoy all that.
Well-
Even just walking down the street.
Yeah, you mentioned when you were growing up, you were in South Colton,
Mhm.
and you felt very, very safe.
Oh, yes.
You felt very, very safe. Now, South Colton, I remember, was self-sufficient.
Yes.
You know, we had our own stores,
Mhm.
we had our own church, we
Right.
had our own school, we had our own restaurants, and we had our own sports activities.
Oh, yes.
So it was kind of a self-contained, safe city, wasn't it?
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't desire anything else. We had enough with what was provided for us.
So living in a segregated community kind of, how did you feel about that? Or was there any feeling about them against us or North Colton against South Colton?
I think maybe at the time of the Pachuco era.
The 40s, early 40s?
Uh-huh. That was about the only time we started to get a little fearful about things that might happen, because remember we had a great big war going on in the 40s with the sailors from Cape Han to Colton. The Pachucos from Colton, well, they weren't bad people. It's just that they liked their own group and they were branded as,
Troublemakers.
yeah,
Yes.
troublemakers.
Yeah.
And they got into it. I think I have some literature on it.
Now, did the city council do anything, or the city of Colton interfere and try to
No.
keep the peace?
I think it was just a one-time thing, and it got taken care of. I think the police came in. We didn't have such a big police force either
Uh-huh.
in Colton, and most of it was in North Colton.
Mhm.
The station was in North Colton.
Mhm.
But being that we were at war, it was a wartime, and the Pachuco culture was coming up,
Mhm.
and that's what they couldn't. I think it was mainly they were fighting over the girls.
That has never stopped, Ramona.
They haven't never stopped. You're right, but I think that's what started the whole thing. The Pachuco girls probably were going with the sailors, and the sailors were going with the Pachuco girls, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I think that's what started the whole thing. I really never figured it out,
Mhm.
but that's when I started to feel a little unsafe.
Mhm.
But then it stopped.
Mhm.
It kind of went on its way and
Mhm.
petered out, and that's it.
Mhm.
But no, the only time that I'm feeling very uncomfortable is now,
Mhm.
because now it seems that everybody has a gun,
Mhm.
and if you don't have a gun, you're allowed to have one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, you know, a gun doesn't kill anybody by itself.
Mhm.
It's a person that kills
Mhm. Mhm.
or damages.
Yes,
So-
yes, yes, yes.
Other than that, everything is, in the area where I live right now, we have a lot of different, we're an international body. We have Jordanians, we have Negro people, we have Mexicans, we have,
Mhm.
you name it. We're just international, national, international, and whatever. It's just a happy, it's only when outside people come in,
Mhm.
troublemakers,
Mhm.
that we have trouble.
Mhm.
With our own local people,
Yeah.
it's,
No, I think it's, like in Colton, most of the people that grew up in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, I see the change that a lot of people moved out of Colton
yeah, and then.
and bought their house in North Colton.
Mhm. Well, because by then they were selling to everybody.
Mhm.
But to say that the culture or getting along, we did get along.
In South Colton.
Mhm. And even in North Colton.
Mhm.
But because, like you say, the people that are a little better well off did get out of Colton because they wanted to live in a new community. Let's
Mhm.
put it, a new community.
Mhm.
And the newer generation was coming up, and they also would follow
Mhm.
and go to the newer communities. And a lot of them wound up being old residents, old families.
Mhm.
And I still remember all those families.
Mhm.
But we used to sleep with our doors open.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nobody bothered you, nobody took anything from your house, nothing. Nobody, nothing. It was just peaceful.
It was just safe. It was
Peaceful
just
and
safe.
safe.
And you were trustworthy.
We
You
trusted
your
everybody.
neighbors. You
We
trusted your
yeah,
neighbors.
we trusted everybody.
Ramona, I think we've gone through all our questions that we
Okay.
have here.
Wonderful.
Do you have, did I miss anything, or do you have any other points that you would like to make?
Any additions to this?
Yes,
Let
any
me see.
additions to this?
Let me see. Well,
Let me ask you, how did people earn a living in South Colton? Like your dad, you said he worked for the cement plant, and then he worked for the PFE, and then you, the family went to Hemet. How did other people, did they follow the same thing? Because I know that we had some people that worked in the citrus, picking oranges. Yeah.
My husband, Trino, he was an orange picker with Mr. Velasquez?
Velasquez, yeah.
Velasquez.
Right.
He was one of their top pickers. A él le llamaban el cienero.
El cienero, 100 boxes a day. He would pick 100 boxes a day.
He and his brother would compete to each other, an older brother, and they were the cieneros with him.
Yeah, the contractor was Mr. Vasquez.
Right.
Yeah.
Velasquez.
And he would pick up the crew.
Or Mr. Colunga.
Juan Colunga.
Juan Colunga. Yeah.
Yeah. They would get their truck and pick up the crew from different parts of Colton, and then take them to the orchards.
Right.
And then in the orchards, they would have their sack,
Their sack.
and their clippers,
Right.
and their jackets were Levi jackets, so they wouldn't get scratched by the branches of the tree.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then we did have a lot of orange groves, which they eliminated because all these shopping centers that have come in, the new homes that have come in, new neighborhoods. So we've done away with a lot of our own agriculture.
So your husband was a cienero,
A cienero.
100 boxes a day. And for lunch, I remember the lunch, we used to pick oranges, and for lunch we used to light a fire with the branches of the orange trees, the dry branches. And then an hour later, we had the brasas. They used to put our tacos, on top of
of course, in those days you didn't have foil.
No, we just put them on top of the coals.
Yeah, that's right.
And then by, at noon we had our bean tacos.
Yeah.
Or bean tacos with egg.
Oh, yeah.
Or bean tacos with rice, whatever.
And pork meat, of course.
Yes. Yeah, those were the days.
Those were the days, yes. That's
Yeah.
true. But that's about all I can tell you about the days of the 40s, 39, 40, up to the 50s. But my husband finished, his last job was a cement plant at Riverside.
Okay.
He worked for, and there was a Mr. Chema,
Colunga.
No, I think it was
Chema
Martinez.
Martinez?
Maybe
Yeah.
Martinez. I don't remember his last, but it was Mr. Chema, and he's the one that got him the job.
I see.
So he became a truck driver for Riverside Cement and a bricklayer. He used to line the kilns where they turned and burned the cement. And when he got into the service, he became a truck driver in the service. His job was to drive one of those big trucks where the troops were in there, and in the back they would haul one of those Hollister, what did they call them? The little Hollister cannons, the little cannons. And my husband and another little crew, there was 4 people, I think. One of them would push the bullet in there, the other one would close the door, and my husband would pull the thing to fire it.
Where did he go overseas?
He was in Germany.
Okay.
Germany, and he wound up in a French hospital because when they were moving around with the cannon, they didn't hold it up enough, and they had a little tripod. One of those little tripods caught his leg. It just bruised it. It didn't break it, but it bruised it so that they took him to a hospital in France, and that's when the end of the war. So he stayed over there in occupation just for a small time, and then he was shipped back to California.
In thinking of your mom, what good memories do you have of your mom?
My mom was a very hard worker. Like I tell you, she was very economical and everything. If it hadn't been for my mother, we would have all starved. She could make anything out of any little thing, and but they kept us very well nourished. My father never believed in junk food, no candies. He didn't want our teeth to get rotten, and so so he said, you either buy yourself, if he ever gave us a nickel, you got to buy yourself a banana or an apple, and I don't want to hear that you went and bought candies.
So your mom kept the family
Oh, yeah.
together.
Yeah, if it weren't for my mother, we would, I don't think any of us would have survived. But
Well-
anyway, it's been a roller coaster, but it's a very pleasant memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, very pleasant memory.
Well, Ramona, I thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
But you probably are going to get mixture of other people's opinions and other things that have gone on, which is very good. I
Well,
like
not
it.
only that, but each of us has experiences, personal experiences.
Oh, yes.
And I think we share those. It'll give us a good idea of how life was in South Cold during those periods.
It was rough, but we all made it.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's being rough now,
Mm-hmm.
we're all gonna make it. 'Cause
Yeah.
Primero Dios.
Primero Dios. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Well, thanks a lot for listening to me.
No, we thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think the interview was very interesting and also very, very educational. So Ramona, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.